Welcome back to Obsidian Quill Publishing Nightmares. Tonight, you're getting two terrifying cryptid stories pulled straight from the pages of creepy cryptid tales. So lock the doors, turn down the lights, and ask yourself one question. What if the legends are true? From shadowy forests and forgotten roads to creatures that refuse to stay hidden, these are stories where ordinary people come face to face with extraordinary nightmares. If you enjoy cryptids, supernatural horror, dogmen, Bigfoot, werewolves, vampires, and creatures that lurk just beyond the campfire's glow, you've found your home. Before we begin, I'd like to thank every one of you for subscribing and supporting the channel. Your likes, comments, and shares help Obsidian Quill Publishing Nightmares continue to grow, and I truly appreciate every one of you. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a new nightmare. And if you'd like even more stories, be sure to check out my books. The Hunt for Dogman series, Blood in Brooklyn Creepy Cryptid Tales. They're available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Just scan the QR code or visit the links in the description to begin your next adventure. Now, turn up the volume. Keep one eye on the darkness outside your window, because tonight's nightmares are just beginning.
Wayne Jackson was born in a small town tucked deep in the hills of Virginia. Most of his childhood was spent outdoors, following his dad and grandpa into the wild. Every fall, like clockwork, the three of them would make the annual trek into the woods for deer hunting season. They didn't just skim the edges either. They went deep into the forests, camping under the cold stars, living off the land for days at a time. The family tradition wasn't toting rifles like most hunters. No, it was the bow. Wayne's grandpa, a wiry old man who moved through the trees like some forest wizard, had been taught archery in the army. He passed those skills down to Wayne's father, and in turn, to Wayne. "Hunting ain't a sport," Grandpa used to grumble, spitting tobacco into the fire. "It's survival, it's respect. Any jackass can shoot a buck with a rifle. But a real hunter? He uses his wits. And a bow." Wayne hadn't touched a bow in years. Life happened. College took him away. Grandpa passed. Then his father not long after. The woods became a memory. The traditions faded. Until yesterday. While digging through some old boxes, Wayne stumbled across a dusty photo. Grandpa standing tall and sharp-eyed, a weathered bow slung across his chest, Dad grinning wide, dressed head to toe in camo, and himself, barely 10 years old, holding his tiny starter bow with a gap-toothed smile. A pang of longing twisted in Wayne's chest. Maybe it was time. One more trip, for old time's sake. Georgia woods weren't much different from Virginia's, he figured. Quiet, deep, full of secrets. He packed light, just a tent, a bedroll, a few supplies, and his old compound bow, and decided to head out early Saturday morning. If he left by 4 a.m., he'd be deep in the forest and setting up camp by first light. The woods were calling, and this time, Wayne would answer them alone. Wayne pulled into the Coopers Creek Wildlife Management Area just after 4 a.m., the parking lot little more than a clearing in the dark. He cut the engine of his Audi sedan and sat for a moment, smiling to himself. This was good. This was right. Maybe this would become an annual thing again, just like his grandpa and dad used to do. Shouldering his pack and slinging his old compound bow over his back, Wayne stepped out into the chilly air. He locked the car with a soft beep, the sound oddly loud in the heavy silence of the forest. Then he turned toward the dirt trail and walked into the woods. Almost immediately, the dark swallowed him. His flashlight punched a narrow beam through the black, bouncing off roots and rocks along the ground. Behind him, the car and the lot vanished, eaten up by shadow and trees. The woods were alive. The scent of damp earth and pine filled his nose, and somewhere off to his right, an owl called low and mournful. Wayne slowed his breathing, letting his senses adjust. The pulse of the forest, creaks, groans, scuttling unseen life, welcomed him back, like an old friend. He pulled out his compass, checking it under the flashlight's beam. Then he looked up. The sky was perfectly clear, stars scattered like broken glass across the heavens. Good. He decided to head northeast, toward higher ground. Higher meant better sight lines, fewer chances of running into wet, low-lying traps. And instinctively, Wayne knew it was better to put distance between himself and the road. Shifting the strap on his shoulder, he took a deep breath and moved deeper into the forest. The trail narrowed. Wayne walked for nearly an hour, the dark woods slowly giving way to the first hints of morning. The black sky softened into bruised purples and oranges as the sun began to poke through the trees. Each shaft of light touched the ground like a blessing, igniting the damp leaves in gold and copper. Wayne paused, breathing in the crisp air, soaking in the beauty that no city skyline could ever match. Then, like a storybook opening, he stepped out of the trees and into a clearing. It was perfect. A wide, open meadow hugged the edge of a still, glassy lake. Animal trails crisscrossed the grass, paths beaten down by generations of soft paws and hooves. Closer to the water, Wayne spotted signs of smaller creatures, rabbits, raccoons, tiny prints scattered like confetti. And then, the deeper trails, heavier, weaving through the grass. Deer, Wayne thought, smiling. This was it. The perfect spot. He decided to set up camp about 100 yards back from the lake, tucked near the edge of the woods for cover. Then he picked a massive tree near the water's edge for his hunting stand. Thick, sturdy, with sprawling limbs that gave a full command of the clearing. By 6:30 a.m., Wayne was 30 feet off the ground, perched in his stand, surveying his new kingdom. The forest was alive with sound, birds trilling, branches rustling, the lake gently lapping against the shore. He scanned the trails methodically, noting where the deer moved, where the rabbits darted. Then something caught his eye. Off to the side of the main game trails, hidden almost parallel to the well-worn deer path, was another trail. But this one was different. It was massive, wider, deeper, carved straight through the underbrush like something far heavier than a deer had been using it. And unlike the animal paths that wandered to the water's edge, this one never once veered toward the lake. Wayne narrowed his eyes. That's odd, he thought. Something was moving through this area. Something big. And it wasn't coming to drink. He shifted slightly in his stand, instinctively adjusting his grip on the bow. There were no known large predators in Georgia. No grizzlies, no wolves. A few black bears maybe, but they were shy, mostly nocturnal. Wayne's smile faded as a cold prickle ran down his spine. Something big is hunting, he thought, unsettled by the idea, though he quickly brushed it away. Probably just a bear, he told himself. Still, he kept his bow close, just in case. Wayne waited, motionless, perched 30 feet up in his stand. A few minutes pass. Then, rustling. Off to his right, about 75 yards away, 5 deer emerged cautiously from the woods. They nibbled at the grass, constantly pausing, ears flicking, eyes darting. Come on. Head to the water, Wayne thought, settling his breath. He scanned the group and found his prize, the dominant buck. The deer was massive, easily 6 feet from nose to tail, antlers stretching 4.5 feet wide, sharp as spear tips. Wayne's fingers itched to draw his bow, but he forced himself to be patient. He didn't notice at first. But slowly the background noise of the forest was fading. The birds stopped. The wind fell dead. No rustling, no chirps, no insects. Just the sound of water lapping against the lake, and Wayne's own heartbeat pounding in his ears. "Quiet woods mean no good," Grandpa's voice whispered in his mind. "It means there's a predator more deadly than you out there." Wayne swallowed, glancing around, trying to shake the feeling crawling up his spine. "Good thing I'm 30 feet up," he reassured himself. "Nothing can scent me from up here." But his heart was racing faster now. The air itself felt charged, like a storm about to break. Down below, the deer shifted nervously, ears flicking in every direction. They sensed it too. Then, snap. A twig cracked behind the big buck. Before Wayne could even react, a blur of black fur and muscle exploded from the tree line. It roared, a deep, gut-churning sound, and swiped razor-sharp claws at the buck, knocking it to the ground in one devastating blow. The rest of the deer scattered, fleeing back into the woods with panicked bounds. Wayne watched, paralyzed, as the buck struggled to rise, its antlers swinging defensively. Then he got really good. Look. At first, it looked like a wolf. A huge wolf, covered in matted black fur, jaws drooling, yellow eyes glowing even in the growing light. But then, it pushed itself upright, using long, clawed hands more like a raccoon's or a human's than any wolf's. Bones popped and cracked as it settled onto its massive hind legs, rising higher, until it loomed almost 8 feet tall. The creature let out a low, rumbling growl, tilting its grotesque head as it regarded the buck like a cat sizing up a wounded mouse. Wayne couldn't move. He dared breathe. There are no werewolves in Georgia, he thought wildly. There's no such thing as this. But down below, something big, clawed, fanged, and very real, just hunted and killed a buck. And Wayne realized with a cold lurch of horror that it was only a matter of time before it noticed him. The creature opened its mouth wide, revealing rows of long, jagged fangs, each one slick with blood and thick saliva. Its chest was massive, like a bodybuilder's, broad and straining against its fur, easily 4 feet across. Its arms hung low, unnaturally long, almost brushing the ground where knees should have been. But instead there were powerful canine legs, jointed like a monstrous German shepherd's, every muscle beneath the skin rippling with coiled strength. Wayne could only watch, paralyzed with fear as the beast sized up the wounded buck. Without hesitation it lunged forward, sinking its horrific fangs deep into the deer's neck as the creature tore out a massive chunk of flesh, ending the buck's struggles instantly. The monster wasn't done. It clamped its clawed hand around the antlers and, with a brutal snap, twisted the buck's neck, ensuring the kill was absolute. Wayne sat frozen in his perch, barely daring to breathe. The creature stood over its kill, its black fur bristling, and roared, a sound so deep it rattled Wayne's ribcage even from 30 feet above. Then, with a casual ease that defied its bulk, the creature bent, gripped the carcass in one hand, and slung it over its shoulder like a hunter carrying firewood. Wayne's heart hammered in his chest. Maybe. It hadn't seen him. But as the creature approached the tree line, it stopped. It turned its monstrous head and looked straight up into Wayne's tree. Their eyes locked. Wayne's blood went ice cold. The beast's lips curled back, not in a snarl, not in anger, but in a smile. A twisted, lopsided grin that bared all those blood-slicked teeth on one side of its face. A grin that said, "I see you. I know you're here. And I'll be back." Then without a sound, it turned and disappeared into the thick brush, vanishing like a phantom between the trees. Wayne sat motionless for what felt like an eternity, his mind reeling. It had seen him. It had acknowledged it had seen him. And that meant it wasn't finished. Time to go, Wayne muttered to himself, forcing his trembling hands to obey. Every instinct screamed at him to stay put, to hide. But he knew better. He had to move. Now. With stiff, unsteady movements, Wayne climbed down from his stand. His boots hit the ground with a soft thud, and he instinctively checked the tree line where the monster had disappeared. The tent. The sleeping bag. Forget it. It's just gear. Just things. Not worth dying for. He had his bow gripped tight in his hand. He had his keys in his pocket. And that was enough. Wayne broke into a slow jog, an easy pace conserving his energy. Not too slow, but not so fast. He'd burn out before he reached the car. It wasn't even 7 a.m. yet. The forest still wore a light veil of mist and shadow. Why the hell did I walk an hour into the woods? Why didn't I just camp by the lot? He thought panic was beginning to claw its way into his mind, but Wayne shoved it down. Focus. Focus on the path. Focus on moving your feet. He could see them, his own boot prints pressed into the soft earth. But the trees looked different. The light through the branches wasn't the same. The trail seemed to bend oddly, with unfamiliar twists in what should have been a straight shot. Is it just adrenaline? Is panic starting to mess with me? He didn't know. He just kept moving. After 6 solid minutes of jogging, his lungs burned and his thighs ached. Wayne slowed to a fast walk, sucking in air but never stopping. Not with that thing out there. The woods around him were noisy again, birds calling, branches stirring. That was good. That meant the creature was still back with its kill. I wonder how much something like that eats, Wayne thought grimly, not sticking around to find out. He fished out his compass and checked the heading. Still southeast. Still heading in the right direction away from that nightmare. Just keep moving. Just make it back to the car. Wayne moved a few more paces down the trail, his boots crunching the damp leaves. Then, crack. Off to his left, something snapped a massive branch. Wayne spun, heart hammering, and in one smooth motion notched an arrow onto his bowstring, locking onto the direction of the sound. Nothing. Only silence. Wait. It's too quiet, Wayne thought, a fresh wave of fear racing through his veins. Way too quiet. He pivoted slowly, scanning the woods behind him, then to the right, then back to the left. Eyes darting, he tensed. Then he caught it. A flash of black fur, high in a tree 70 feet away. It moved fast, too fast, scrambling up the trunk and vanishing into the branches. Wayne stared, his pulse pounding in his temples. Nope. 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 He muttered under his breath, quickly unnotching the arrow. Keep moving. Don't freeze. Keep moving. The woods remained unnervingly still. No birds, no squirrels, no wind. Just the sound of his own breathing, fast and ragged. Grandpa's voice echoed in his mind. If the woods go quiet, boy, there's something deadlier than you out there. Wayne tried to steady his breathing, tried to focus, tried not to think about how badly his hands were shaking. He forced himself forward, keeping low, keeping silent. Then, high in another tree to his left, maybe 80 feet away, half hidden behind the thick trunk, watching him. A canine head, long pointed ears, black fur blending into the shadows, crouched 20 feet up the tree like some monstrous panther. Wayne's stomach twisted into knots. He backed a step instinctively. Crack. Another log snapped, this time off to his right, low to the ground, followed by a deep guttural growl that vibrated through the still air. Wayne's breath caught. They're trying to flank me. The realization hit him harder than anything else. A lone predator wasn't just hunting him. It was a pack. And whatever was following him wasn't stalking blindly. They were coordinated, intelligent, patient, and worse, closing in. Wayne quickened his pace, forcing his legs to move faster even as his instincts screamed to break into a sprint. He realized he couldn't run. Running would trigger them. but walking might not save him either. Wayne forced himself to move. "Damned if I do. Damned if I don't," he muttered, gritting his teeth. He checked the quiver on his bow, counting quickly. 12 carbon arrows, his compound bow tuned to a 70-pound draw. "If I aim for the eyes," he thought, "I might stand a chance." He ripped off his jacket, tying it clumsily around his waist. Maybe, just maybe, it'll throw them for half a second. Wayne exhaled hard, steadying his nerves, and then he ran. Not a dead sprint. He needed control. He needed to make decisions on the move, but fast enough to cover ground. Each step and arrow had to matter. The woods blurred around him. Something big barreled through the underbrush to his right, and a low growl echoed around him. Wayne didn't dare look. Focus forward. Focus on escape. But his instincts betrayed him. He glanced left and saw it. The one in the trees. It leapt effortlessly from branch to branch, a living shadow, its yellow eyes burning through the gloom. Its mouth hung open in a savage grin, rows of gleaming teeth catching the faint light as it moved, faster than anything that size should be able to move. Wayne ducked a low branch, stumbled over a root, caught himself, and surged onward. The ground sloped down. Downhill meant speed. Downhill meant closer to the parking lot. He pumped his legs harder, his heart pounding so loud he could barely hear the crashing and snarling now flanking him on both sides. They were hurting him. The crashes grew louder to Wayne's right, smashing through the underbrush like a freight train. He could really hear them now. Thud. 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 The heavy pounding of its paws against the ground. This wasn't an animal running on all fours. It was upright, two-legged, and its stride was longer than his. That meant it was big. Worse yet, the way the brush was shifting. It was veering toward him, getting ready to cut him off. Wayne slowed just enough to yank the jacket from around his waist. He hurled it behind him, angling it to land off to his right. Without looking back, he sprinted another 40 yards down the trail. Then he skidded to a stop and notched an arrow, dropping to one knee, bowstring pulled tight. The creature to his right took the bait. It exploded from the trees and pounced on the discarded jacket, tearing into it with the ferocity of a starved predator. Wayne watched, grim-faced as it shredded the fabric with claws and teeth. It wasn't long before the creature realized the truth. It wasn't tearing into flesh. It rose to its full, monstrous height, 8 feet of snarling fury, gripping the tattered jacket in a massive, clawed hand. Its eyes locked onto Wayne, burning with rage, as if it were promising him, "You will pay for that." Wayne didn't hesitate. The moment their eyes met, he let the arrow fly. Even as he turned and resumed running, he knew the shot had connected. The creature let out a howl of excruciating pain that shook the trees. Wayne risked a glance back and saw the arrow buried deep in its eye socket. He notched another arrow on the run, spun, and fired again, this time striking it low in the thigh. The dogman creature collapsed, but before it died, it let out a roar that split the forest, a roar that wasn't just rage. It was a summons. Wayne's blood ran cold as he heard it. In the distance, answering howls, long, low, and many. The dogman in the trees landed on the ground ahead of him with a heavy, bone-jarring thud, blocking his path. Its claws gleamed like knives in the early morning light. Wayne slid to a stop, arrow half-drawn, heart pounding harder than ever. Wayne pulled the bowstring back as far as it would go, the arrow trembling with tension. Then he released and charged. A raw scream tore from his throat as he rushed the creature. For a moment, the monster seemed almost amused by his pitiful act of bravery. Tilting its head in mock curiosity, it forgot the arrow that had already left Wayne's bow. The shaft struck it dead between the eyes with a wet, meaty thunk. The creature let out a shuddering, guttural moan that reverberated through the woods, shaking the leaves on the trees. Wayne didn't hesitate. He notched another arrow as he closed the distance, kicked the staggering beast squarely in the chest, and knocked it to the ground. Standing over its twitching form, he shot his second arrow point blank into its open mouth. The creature spasmed once, then lay still. Wayne didn't wait to savor the victory. He spun and continued to run, boots digging into the dirt. He could hear the others, still 100 yards out, crashing through the forest, answering the dying creature's final call. By the time those things found the carcass of their pack member, he would be closer to his car. Gotta keep moving. The forest around him stirred to life. The chirp of birds, the rustle of squirrels. But Wayne knew better than to trust it. The real danger was still behind him. He slowed to a steady jog, lungs burning, muscles screaming. He doubled over, out of breath. When he risked a glance up, he saw it. His car, parked in the clearing, gleaming like a lifeboat at sea. So close, yet so far. Then the howls rose again, deep, furious, blood-chilling howls that seemed to shake the very ground. Wayne didn't look back. He just ran. The echoes of their cries filled the woods, bouncing off the trees, making it impossible to tell just how close they were. But he knew. They were gaining. Why the hell did I go so far into the woods? The thought burned through his mind like wildfire. He racked his brain for anything, to slow them down. Fire? Forget it. Even in perfect conditions, a seasoned outdoorsman could maybe build a spark and kindling fire in 2 minutes. He wasn't seasoned, and he sure as hell didn't have 2 minutes. Wayne pushed harder, his legs screaming in protest. Behind him, he could hear the crashes growing louder. They definitely had his scent now, and they were coming. Fast. Wayne pushed himself to keep moving. His legs were getting numb. Then he heard it. The roars behind him. He risked a glance over his shoulder. 3 massive canine creatures stood on the path 100 yards back, noses lifted, sniffing the air. Their black fur bristled, their yellow eyes locked onto him. Wayne's heart sank. His car was still a quarter-mile away. 440 yards of open, unforgiving ground. A football field separated him from the monsters now, and shrinking fast. They roared again and charged. Wayne spun, notched his remaining arrows, and fired wildly. Desperate shots, praying for a miracle. But the beasts dodged easily, weaving through the trees, gaining ground with terrifying speed. Wayne realized with a hollow, sick certainty he wasn't going to make it. He drew his hunting knife, turned and charged, screaming his defiance. The creatures pounced. They slammed into him, ripping into his flesh, tossing him like a rag doll. His screams echoed through the woods, high, desperate, before they faded, swallowed by the savage roars and snarls of the feeding pack. The forest fell silent again. Satisfied howls drifted up into the morning sky. It took 2 weeks before anyone found Wayne's abandoned car. Hidden off the dusty parking lot, keys missing, dust gathering on the windshield. No immediate reason to search deeper into the woods. Wayne Jackson had lived alone. No wife, no family, no one to miss him right away. It wasn't until a month later that a team of rangers, searching for another missing hiker, stumbled across what was left. His remains were scattered high in the trees, half-eaten, limbs torn away, his chest ripped wide open. The sheriff stood grimly at the scene, hat clutched in his hands. A young deputy approached, voice low. "We ran a background on the victim, Sheriff. Wayne Jackson, worked as a mainframe programmer in downtown Atlanta. No next of kin." The sheriff nodded slowly. "Good," he said. "I couldn't bear to break this kind of news to anyone." He stared into the dark woods, heart heavy with a knowledge he couldn't voice. "Let's close this section of the park until they move on," he muttered. "And close this case as another victim of the Chattahoochee." Wayne's story should serve as a cautionary tale to hunters everywhere. Sometimes, when you venture into the wilderness, You may not be the only thing hunting, but our next story takes us away from the forests and mountains and into a very different kind of wilderness, a forest of concrete, steel, and brick. Thank you for staying tuned, and get ready for the second half of tonight's double upload. Deep beneath the streets, where thousands of people pass every day, something is waiting in the darkness. I call this story Tunnel 13.
Over 8 million people flood through Manhattan every day. Some come to work, some to play, and some never leave. About 1,000 people go missing in New York City daily. Most are found. Some days after. Some after months. I'm a detective. Been on the job 18 years. Thought I'd seen everything. Then came Thomas Lyle. 26. Lived in Metuchen, New Jersey. Took the train in to catch a show with friends. Theater district. They had dinner, cracked jokes, and took pictures. Then said their goodbyes around midnight. Everyone made it home. Except him. We pulled surveillance from Penn Station. At 12:58 a.m., Thomas is seen heading down toward track 13. He passes the vending machines, glances at his phone near the stairwell, then steps into the camera's blind spot. Everyone figured he got on the train, but his parents said he never came home. I talked to the train conductor, and he doesn't remember anyone fitting Thomas's description on the train. He said that, in total, there were 20 passengers on the train he would have remembered. So a young guy comes into New York, has a blast, gets on the train in Penn Station, and then he never comes out the other side. That was 33 hours ago. I followed every trace, interviewed friends, pulled his digital trail. I know what seat he had at the show, what he ate, even the last meme he sent. His credit cards haven't been used. Usually, if someone was kidnapped, there would be a ransom demand, or credit cards haven't activity. Nothing. Even serial killers dump the body after a while. So I go back to square one. I'm standing on the same platform where Thomas Lyle was last seen waiting for the train back to Jersey. I've probably stood here longer than half the commuters who pass through this place daily. To my left, a grimy concrete wall. To my right, the edge of the platform and the yawning rails that disappear into black murkiness. And behind me, a massive connector tunnel. It opens wide like a gaping mouth, stretching toward the abandoned train yard in Long Island City. Decades ago, this place served as a wheelhouse, the heart of operations. Then Amtrak shut it down. Too much methane leaking from Tunnel 13. The story started after workers disappeared, then clicking sounds, the feeling of being watched, usual stuff when you work in a dark, enclosed space over time. If only they appreciated mental health like we do now, I thought to myself. I've walked down to that opening more times than I can count, staring at the yard, at the dead tracks, hoping something might reveal itself. A detail I missed, a scrap of paper, a piece of lint, anything. But just like every other time, I get nothing. If Thomas had been hit by a train, we'd have found something. Blood, bone, a torn sleeve, a smear of him on the rails. But there's nothing. No drag marks, no footprints, no trace. Like the platform swallowed him. And now, I'm standing in front of Tunnel 13, and I feel it. A chill, sharp, cold, creeping up my spine, which makes no sense. It's 85 degrees outside. The city's baking. But here, the air is wrong, thicker, heavy, still. Then I hear it, clicking, fast, loud, like claws against stone, coming from the tunnel. I raise my light, hand trembling slightly, and shine it into the tunnel's throat. The beam cuts through the dark, illuminating rusted tracks and wet stone. But nothing moves. Still, it feels like something's just outside the light's edge, watching, waiting. Tunnel 13 has always felt wrong, but tonight it feels alive. This is the closest tunnel to the platform. If Thomas had gone in here, or been dragged, there'd be some trace. but there isn't. And I've been down every shaft, every corridor, every crawl space in this part of the underground. 3 nights ago, I thought I had a break. I spotted a homeless man wandering near the lower platform at Penn, filthy, barefoot, but wearing Thomas's blazer, same color, same wine stain on the cuff. Instant suspect. I brought him in, asked questions, pushed hard. He never broke, never changed his story. Said he found the jacket near the abandoned service lines, down past Tunnel 13. Said it wasn't the first time someone disappeared down there. I asked him what he meant. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Stay clear of them tunnels, detective. They're full of methane and death." I wrote him off as disturbed. Just another broken soul living in the cracks of the city. But he had no blood, no bruises, no scratches or defensive wounds. Just shaking hands and a stare that looked through walls. There was no way this guy could even take Thomas. He was 130 pounds dripping wet. I had to rule him out as a suspect. Then he mentioned something odd. He said he used to know someone, another drifter who camped out past the utility shafts by Tunnel 13. One night, he vanished. Gone. No gear. No goodbye. "I thought he moved on," the man mumbled, then added, "Others say he was eaten." Now I'm back here again to check out the abandoned service tunnel where the homeless guy claimed he found the jacket. And then I see them, claw marks, deep gouges etched into the concrete. 5 of them, 4 feet off the ground, then arching up, overhead. Something crawled on the ceiling, watching. And then I heard it, breathing, not human, savage, wild, non-human, like something that had just finished chasing prey and was savoring the catch. I backed out slowly. I didn't run. I didn't panic, just walked. Like fear couldn't follow me if I didn't show it my back. But inside, I was shaken. I lit a cigarette the second I hit street level. I haven't smoked in 5 years. And as the crowd surged around me, laughing and yelling and hurrying through the station, I realized none of them has any idea what's down there. Neither do I, but I know it's no good, and it's probably killing people, and it's my job to solve this case, so that means going back, and I wasn't going alone. The next morning, I brought 5 officers with me, men I trust, tactical, armed, no rookies. This wasn't a recovery mission. It was a hunt. We gathered outside Tunnel 13. The smell hit us immediately. Methane. Thick. Wet. Rotten. "Masks on," I ordered. Garza, one of my guys, gave the warning. No one fires their weapon unless they want to blow us sky high. We moved in. Single file. Flashlights sweeping every surface. About 30 feet in, the temperature dropped. And then we saw it. The claw marks. Not just on the walls this time. They were everywhere. Long trails like razor talons dragging through wet clay, up and down, sideways, diagonally. This thing, whatever it was, moved easily on the walls as easily as we could walk on the ground. It not only crawled on the walls and ceilings, it probably lived up there, watching its victims like Thomas and us. "What the hell are we chasing down here?" one of them muttered. I didn't respond, because that's when I saw it. Thomas's hand, or what was left of it, gnawed off at the elbow, bones crushed, flesh torn, bits of ligament still clinging like chewed meat on a drumstick. Even through the mask, the stench hit me. I ripped it off and vomited into the corner, put it back on, and kept moving. In my 18 years, I've seen every way a body can be broken, but nothing like this. We found more. A leg, another hand, and then his torso, split open, ribs cracked wide like a birdcage, organs half-eaten, blood still fresh, black and separating. It was feeding. Recently, Thomas's face was frozen in a scream. Rigor mortis had set in long ago, but something kept eating him. Then we heard it, breathing, wheezing, ragged, close, too close, and then a click followed by a low and guttural hum vibrating through the walls. It rose into a growl that didn't belong in any animal we've cataloged. Not a dog, not a wolf. Something else. Something that used to be human, or something that used to be all animal, maybe. We raised our weapons on instinct. The lights flickered, and then, thud. It dropped from the ceiling, black tar-colored skin, hairless, sinewy, 7 feet tall. Long limbs, fingers tipped with claws. No nose, just a mouth, full of fangs, serrated and black, and stained with blood and skin, eyes like sunken red voids. It smiled. Then it lunged. I dove. The officer standing next to me wasn't so lucky. It bit him. I could hear the sound of flesh tearing and his screams. "Open fire!" I shouted. But we couldn't fire, not in the methane. So we ran, screaming, weapons raised but useless, as the thing snarled. And then it took Garza. It moved fast, something that size. One moment, Garza was at my side, weapon raised, eyes scanning. The next, he was screaming, dragged backward into the dark, eyes wide in terror and pain, blood gushing from the bite wound, his screams pleading for help. "Get it off! Get it off!" Garza was no rookie, 5'10", 225 pounds, former Army Ranger, 2 tours in Iraq, a man who ran toward danger, not from it, and all we could do was watch. His flashlight bounced wildly in the tunnel, casting jagged, fleeting shadows, until it dropped with a clatter. Then came the sound that would haunt me forever. A wet, violent crunch, like flesh being torn from bone. Blood sprayed from the shadows, splattering across the wall and our feet like it had been thrown there. And then, nothing screams, just cut off, like someone flipped a switch. We ran. Forget tactics. Forget formations. We turned and bolted, slipping on the damp concrete, gasping through our masks. We made it out, alive. Most of us. But Garza was gone, and we all knew he'd suffered the same fate as Thomas Lyle, ripped apart and fed on like meat left in a slaughterhouse. Later on, I sat at my desk, staring at my monitor. My hands were still shaking. I pulled up the report. Tried to type what I'd seen. Describe it clinically. Male humanoid, 7 feet, black, like tar. I was trying to explain a nightmare with science. Then, I did what I never thought I'd do on the job. I turned to the internet. I searched keywords, underground creature, tunnel attacks, pale humanoid NYC, climbing monster. And that's when I found it. A cryptid site, half-baked forums and black background blogs. But there it was, an image, the rake, hairless, elongated limbs, black sunken eyes, teeth like knives. Exactly what we saw. Every muscle in my body tensed. This wasn't just some story to scare campers. It was real. It was in the tunnels, and it was hunting. But what I still don't understand is how it got there. The rake is a creature of backwoods legends, forest sightings, sleep paralysis accounts. So why now? Why here? How did it end up beneath the biggest city in the country? Maybe it didn't find the tunnels. Maybe the tunnels were built over it, or worse, for it. The next day, I punched into work like I always did. Badge, clock, numb routine. But nothing was normal anymore. The officers who went down there with me, they were shattered. 2 filed for immediate leave. 1 put in his papers, retirement, effective immediately. None of them spoke about what they saw, not in words, just distant stares, silent nods, and heads that shook slowly, like they were still trying to say no to what their eyes remembered. Garza's name never left anyone's lips. And me? I sat at my desk, staring at an empty case file, trying to figure out how the hell you write a report about something that shouldn't exist. Some higher-up suggested an idea in passing, like it was nothing. Seal it off. Blow the damn tunnel. Bury it. And for a second, it sounded good. Wipe it off the map. Let the city rebuild over the scars. But then the reality hit me. We don't know how deep that tunnel goes, or what else might be hiding in the darkness. Worse, we don't know who's living above that tunnel. Apartments, businesses, entire neighborhoods. And if we detonate explosives down there, with methane gas hanging in the air like invisible dynamite. We wouldn't be sealing off a cryptid. We'd be setting the city on fire. We'd have more victims and a bigger tragedy than 9/11, the Oklahoma bombings, and every school shooting since 1990. All because of one bad idea and too many unknowns. So I needed another way, something smarter. That's when it hit me. Someone maintains these tunnels. The MTA doesn't operate on myth. There are blueprints, repair logs, patrol routes. Someone must have seen something. I headed downtown, MTA headquarters, Transit Operations Division. Not in my suit, I put on some jeans, a Yankee jersey, and ball cap. I need to keep a low profile. I asked questions, got the usual pushback. That section's sealed. It's not in use. No one goes that deep anymore. But I kept digging. Most of those old-timers are retired, collecting pensions and fishing somewhere, I was told. As I left, a worker approached me and handed me a slip of paper with an address to an old maintenance shop off 7th Avenue. "This guy," he said, and hastily walked away from me like I had COVID. That's where I found him, an old man in his 60s, grease under his nails, clipboard in his hand. Badge said Ramirez. I said the words, "Tunnel 13. His eyes didn't widen. He didn't flinch. But his hand tightened around the clipboard like he was bracing for something. He looked at me, really looked, and said, "You went in there, didn't you?" I nodded, just once. Before I could say a word, the old man leaned in and asked, his voice barely above a whisper, "You saw it, didn't you?" I've always prided myself on my poker face. 18 years of interrogations will do that. But this guy, he could teach a master class. "Yup," he said, like we were discussing the weather. "It's a rake." He didn't blink, didn't smirk, just said it straight. Like the word wasn't horrifying, like it wasn't a myth. The fact that you're asking about Tunnel 13 means you went down there, means you saw it. So, you must be a cop. I nodded again, slower this time, and showed him my badge. He just grunted. "Come on, buy me a coffee and I'll tell you what I know. But not here, not in the city." We ended up across the river, Weehawken, New Jersey, some old roadside diner frozen in time, booths lined with red vinyl, countertops stained with memories, the kind of place untouched by tourists or trends. As we sat down, the waitress greeted Ramirez like an old friend. He made small talk, smiled, like he wasn't about to talk to me about death in the tunnels of NYC. "You come here a lot?" I asked. He didn't look at me, just out the window. "I live around the corner," he said. Then after a pause, "I remember when all this was just woods and grass. The air was cleaner too." He took a slow sip of coffee. "You know why they call New Jersey the Garden State?" "Because of all the agriculture," I replied, trying to follow. He nodded, but there was something else in his eyes now. "Back in 1984, he said, tapping the window with a calloused finger. "This was all being built. Trees came down, grass got buried in cement. All for progress, right?" He shook his head, almost sad. "I was 19, fresh hire for the MTA, tunnel maintenance crew. Thought I was hot shit. First real job." Then we both felt it, a low rumble beneath the floor. He didn't flinch. "That's the Amtrak," he said casually. "Coming from New York, you can feel the vibration all the way out here. That train is 5 miles off exactly." He pointed over his shoulder, out toward the dark horizon. Then he got quiet. "First year on the job, we get reports of methane leaking from Tunnel 13. Supervisor figured it was a sewer main rupture. The lines run out here to a treatment plant down that way." He looked at me again, only this time there was something hollow in his stare. "We couldn't find the breach on the New York side, so we came out here. It was overtime. I was excited. In '85, we found it. Sewer tie-in was leaking right into Tunnel 13. So we went in, decided to brick it off." He paused again, eyes unfocused. "That's when we heard it. Breathing. not mechanical, not wind. The sound of something big inhaling and exhaling. I thought it was a bear. He shook his head slowly. It wasn't. It came out of the shadows, tall, black, eyes like red fire. It moved fast, ripped through 4 of my crew like they were paper. I was the youngest and the fastest, so I ran. He moved his shirt slightly, exposing his shoulder. The scars were old, long, jagged, and faded. They looked like they ran from his shoulder to his back on the right side. Didn't know I was bleeding until I hit daylight. He looked down at his coffee. They came to the hospital, my bosses. No press, no police, just them. They asked me what happened. I told them. He looked back at me, and they believed me. That's the worst part. They believed every word. Then they told me, "You were never there." The next day, the access port was filled with concrete. They moved on, but the thing didn't. It found another way in, Ramirez said. It's been in those tunnels for 40 years, maybe longer. I stared at him. Part of me couldn't believe I was asking, but I had to. Can you show me where the tunnel entrance is? Ramirez smiled, not kindly, just knowingly. It's across the street, he said. Right over there, hidden in the old transformer station. He looked out the window again, eyes hard. I've been keeping watch ever since, making sure if it ever got out, I could kill it. His voice dropped. It's become an obsession, detective. It's cost me my friends, my job, my family. He took another sip of his coffee and didn't blink when he said, But I'll die in those tunnels if that's what it takes, because I know what's down there, and I know it's hungry. Ramirez looked at me. That thing! It's afraid of daylight. I checked my watch. 4:13 p.m. He was right. We had maybe a few hours until sunset. So how do we kill it? I asked. He didn't answer right away, just said, Pay the check and follow me. His apartment was exactly where he said, around the corner from the diner. 3rd floor, old building, facing the old pump station and transformer yard across the street. From the outside, it looked like any other dusty unit in North Jersey. But inside, it was a war room. Infrared cameras pointed through blackout-draped windows, multiple screens, video monitors, stacks of handwritten journals, surveillance logs, sketched tunnel maps taped to the walls. The hum of equipment was barely masked by the sound of a fan in the corner. He lived like a man preparing for the end of the world and expecting it to start across the street. He moved like he'd done this routine 1,000 times, checked the battery levels on a portable spotlight, swapped tapes, marked a fresh entry in one of the books. You've been watching that spot all this time? I asked. Since 1985, he said without looking up. 40 years? He nodded. Then he handed me a file, a thick one. I've documented every sighting, every sound, every time someone or something disappeared. I flipped through dates, times, weather, phases of the moon, direction of movement, distances. At first it seemed random, just scribbles and paranoia. But then I noticed something, the dates. At least 4 of them lined up with open missing persons cases I'd looked at in the past year. Bodies found torn apart and filed under. Cause of death, unknown animal attack. Suddenly the dots weren't just connecting. They were screaming. You see it now, don't you? Ramirez said, voice low. New Jersey and New York City knew. Maybe not the suits upstairs, but someone. Someone decided to bury it, and bury everyone it took with it. I told myself I'd worry about the cover-up later. Who knew? Who signed off? Who buried the truth? That could wait. Right now, it has to be stopped. How did that thing wind up here? I asked. Ramirez shrugged, like he'd spent 4 decades trying to figure it out and finally gave up. Maybe its food supply ran out. Maybe it moved out of its territory. New Jersey's got a history of weird shit. The Jersey Devil, Bigfoot sightings in the Pine Barrens. Why not the rake? He turned to his weapon rack. Yes, he had one. Pulled down a 2-foot blade and handed it to me. It was lighter than it looked. Balanced. Razor sharp. "Can't shoot it," Ramirez said. "Methane. One spark and the whole tunnel becomes a fireball." He mimed an explosion with his hands. Boom! We get in close. Stick and move. Like Allie in his prime. Rope-a-dope that bastard. Then he handed me a pair of infrared goggles, so we can see it and whatever else is crawling around down there. From a box under his table, he pulled out LED explosion-proof lanterns, already charged and humming faintly. "Use these for visibility. They don't spark. And this," he held up 5 metal tubes, small enough to fit in a palm. "Flash tubes. I rigged them myself. Hit this button, throw it, and it'll light up a space like the sun for 5 seconds. Enough to blind it. That's when we strike." I nodded, absorbing every word. He was talking tactics like we were 2 soldiers on the edge of a battlefield, because we were. Then I saw it. The moment his mask slipped, he walked over to a dusty shelf and picked up a framed photo. 2 kids, his grandkids, smiling, happy. He kissed his fingers, pressed them gently to the glass, and whispered something I couldn't hear, then turned to me and said, "Let's go." And in his eyes, that strange fire, the kind men carry when they've waited too long for revenge, when obsession and grief boil into clarity. This wasn't just about stopping the rake. This was about ending it. We walked in silence across the street to the old substation, that forgotten concrete block wedged between a chain-link fence and the city's memory. Ramirez pulled a key from around his neck and slid it into the rusted padlock. "I put this on back in '89, he muttered. "Technically, it's supposed to stay unlocked, so maintenance crews can come and go. Good thing no one's had a reason to come here, huh?" The door groaned as it opened, revealing a space swallowed in shadow and silence. Dust blanketed everything, at least 2 inches thick. No footprints, no drag marks, no disturbance. No one had been in here in decades. We moved to the center of the room, where an old, weathered cement slab sat in the floor, about 5 feet wide. "How the hell are we lifting that?" I asked. Ramirez just grinned, crouched down, and lifted it one-handed. It was fake. Hollow plastic, painted to look like cement. "Prop!" I put it here in '89, dug up the real slab underneath, buried the access, then camouflaged it with this. Beneath it was the real entrance, a circular steel manhole worn with time and secrets. He grabbed an old hook tool from the corner, slid it into the groove, and pried it open with a heavy clank. The smell hit us instantly. Stagnant water, rot, methane. I gagged, but Ramirez didn't flinch. "Don't worry," he said, shining his flashlight down. "It's bone dry." He was right. No water, no sewer runoff, just a tunnel about 10 feet high and 4 feet wide, sloping into darkness. We dropped tacked onto a narrow concrete staircase that descended sharply. The air got colder, thicker. The smell of old sewer water wafted from a side passage to our left. We clicked on our infrared goggles, the world around us snapping into a grayscale nightmare. Rusted bolts, exposed rebar, wall slime, and silence, the kind of silence that listens back. About 100 yards in, the tunnel widened into an arched opening carved into crumbling stone, stenciled on the wall in faded red paint, barely legible through the grime. Tunnel 13. We climbed through the 5-foot opening, our boots crunching old bones and debris beneath us. That's when it hit us. The stench. Blood. Methane. Decay. It hit like a wall, thick and wet in our throats. Ramirez didn't stop, didn't hesitate. He just whispered, "We're close." Ramirez tightened his grip on the blade, knuckles pale under the red gleam of the goggles. "There's a fork up ahead," he whispered. "Last time I came down here, it came out of that left tunnel. I don't know where the right one goes. Not sure I want to find out either." Then we heard it. "Scurry!" like a blade being slowly dragged along concrete. It echoed through the dark like a warning. It was coming from the left tunnel. Ramirez raised his hand, signaled to stay silent. We crouched low, moving with our backs against the wall. The floor was damp, sticky in places. Every nerve in my body screamed to turn and run. Through the infrared lens, I spotted it first. 50 yards down the tunnel, a tall, dark figure, hunched, arms too long, its claws dragging behind it, fingers raking the tunnel floor with sick anticipation. "That's it," Ramirez whispered. "It knows we're here." I stared, frozen, as it suddenly scaled the wall like an insect, claws sinking into concrete like it was drywall. Then it crept along the ceiling, limbs contorted, head jerking side to side like it was sniffing for fear. Its breathing changed, ragged, hungry, excited. It wasn't just hunting. It was playing with us, trying to terrify us. And it was working. Ramirez stood up, slow, deliberate, and stepped into the middle of the tunnel. "Make it think we don't see it," he whispered. "Let it get close. When I say, throw the flash." I nodded, barely breathing. It crept closer. 10 yards. 7. 5. I whispered, "It's 7 feet behind you." Ramirez growled through gritted teeth. "You waiting for a damn invitation? Throw it." I lobbed the flash tube high, over his shoulder. The tunnel erupted in blinding white light. The creature screamed, a shriek of rage and pain as it fell from the ceiling with a sickening crack. Ramirez was on it in an instant. He turned, roared, and drove his blade deep into the creature's back, burying it to the hilt. The rake let out a howl that echoed down every tunnel for miles. Then it rose. Full height, 8 feet of lean muscle and nightmare. Blood, black, oily, spilled down its back as it whipped around. Its clawed hand slashed across Ramirez's face and chest, talons tearing through jacket, flesh, and bone. He went airborne, slammed against the tunnel wall with a thunderous crack, and crumpled to the floor. His blade clattered to the ground beside him. Now it was my turn. Ramirez had hurt it. Bad. But it was still breathing, still dangerous, and it was looking at me now, bloodied, cornered, but not afraid. It stared with those black, depthless eyes as if it knew something I didn't. Something worse. I didn't have time to think about it. I raised the flashlight straight into its face. It flinched, hissing, and raised its massive claw to block the beam. There. That was the moment. I lunged. My blade sliced into its left side, deep, angling near where the heart should be. It shrieked, spinning wildly, and slashed at me, razor claws tearing the air an inch from my throat. Too close. I ducked, circled behind it, and drove my blade into its back. It twisted violently, howling, as it tried to catch me with its other arm. I dodged again, the tunnel spinning with sweat and shadows. It reared back, claws raised, ready to end it. I didn't give it a chance. I planted my feet, grabbed the hilt with both hands, and drove the blade into its chest, hard and twisted. A sound ripped from its throat, half roar, half dying breath, and echoed down the tunnel like the cry of something ancient and forgotten. Its claws twitched, hesitated midair. Then its eyes, those dark, hateful voids, went glassy. The thing collapsed. The entire tunnel shook when it hit the ground. I stepped back, gasping, blinking sweat and blood from my eyes. It was over. I rushed to Ramirez. He was crumpled against the wall, chest barely rising. Blood poured from a deep gash across his chest and face. His jacket was soaked, his breathing shallow, broken. "You did it," he wheezed, coughing up blood. "You finished it." "Hold on. I'm getting you out of here," I said, fumbling for my radio. My voice was shaking, so were my hands. "No." He grabbed my wrist, weak but firm. "There's no time." He turned his head just enough to look at the thing lying dead nearby. Then he smiled. "I finally got it," he whispered. His smile faded fast. His body trembled and went still. I wasn't ready to accept it. "Ramirez, hey, hey!" I shook him gently. No response. Then something changed, not in him, around us. The air shifted, the kind of shift you feel in your teeth before a thunderclap. Ramirez's eyelids fluttered, and for 1 second, just one, his eyes widened in terror. "Behind you!" he mouthed. I turned, and my blood froze. Through the lens of my infrared goggles, I saw movement. First one, then two, then 10. Shapes in the dark, long-limbed, crawling along the walls, the ceiling. They were everywhere, not approaching, encircling, tall, thin, eyes glowing like dying stars, watching me. Dozens of them, all silent, all waiting. And in that breathless moment, I realized the truth. We didn't kill the rake. We just killed one of them. And the last thing I heard, before the darkness swallowed everything, was a chorus of clicking claws against concrete and multiple roars rising from the black, cold darkness, not in rage, but in anticipation.
Well, that's where we're going to leave it for today. First, I want to apologize for the delay in getting this episode out. To make up for it, I dropped a double upload, and I really appreciate everyone's patience and for sticking with the series. The investigation into Tunnel 13 is only getting darker, and trust me, what happens next changes everything. If you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter when it drops. As always, thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and if you ever find yourself near an abandoned tunnel after dark, don't go in alone.